So if you guys have been to the grocery store recently and you've walked down your beer aisle, you've probably noticed that your options have really changed in the past few years. And one of those new options are something called IPAs, or India Pale Ales. And IPAs are really interesting beer because they're characterized by this citrusy and this really intensely bitter flavor. And that is the result of an ingredient called hops. Now, IPAs originated in the 1840s, approximately, when the British actually occupied India. And the British living in India wanted something from home. So the distributors in England would ship beer all the way to India for people to drink. But there was an issue. It would spoil by the time it got there, about 3 months. So they noticed when they made their IPAs with the ingredient of hops, they realized that the bacteria didn't grow, and it actually stopped the spoiling. And so this is how IPAs were born. So if I want to make a brand new beer, something new and exciting and unique, and I want it to be a super IPA, extra citrus, extra zesty, really super bitter, how will I do that? I'm going to add a lot of hops. Now, this brings me to my research. So I want to know the relationship between hops and what is probably the most important ingredient in brewing, and that's yeast. Yeast actually converts sugars into the alcohol that we all know and love. So to investigate this, I essentially extract and isolate all of those flavor compounds and those antibacterial compounds that are in the hops themselves. I mix them with my yeast, and then I plate them on what is essentially a nice, nutritious jello for my yeast to grow. After a couple of days, I can compare the growth of a yeast plate by itself and a yeast plate with a hop extract. And you guys can actually see the difference in growth here by those white little dots. Those are my yeast colonies. And after counting all those up, takes me a few minutes, I find that it's actually about a 50% difference between the top plate and the bottom plate, which means that anyone from a home brewer who likes to experiment, or maybe a master brewer at Anheuser-Busch, needs to consider a few things when they're making a new beer, a new IPA. They need to think about what type of yeast they're using. Maybe they need something a little bit more robust. What type of hops they're using. At one point, are they adding those hops in their brewing process? And if there's one thing I want you guys to take away from my presentation, it's that a hoppy beer doesn't necessarily make for happy yeast. Thank you.